Hello everyone. This is an update to my video I made 2 days ago about flight MH370. That's the Malaysian flight that disappeared over the ocean. Well, allegedly did. 6 days ago, I stated what the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Najib Razak, admitted to yesterday, and that is that flight MH370 was hijacked. Here's what we know about this flight. We have a transponder switched off in flight and a communication loss at the same time, as well as a course change shortly thereafter, plus an altitude change. Okay, so I'll go into what that means in a minute, but just so you know, turning off a transponder on a jet aircraft or any aircraft does not make it radar invisible. It just takes the identification flight data off the radar. So when the radar operator is looking at the radar screen, he no longer sees flight MH370, blah, 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 heading this way, altitude. He doesn't see that anymore. All he sees is a blip without identification. So turning the transponder off does not make the plane disappear. They can still track that plane. The only thing is, it no longer has an ID, which should make it stand out, because every other airplane in the sky is going to have an ID. I mean, I used to fly a Cessna 172, and it had a transponder in it. So, you know, even a small little single prop airplane has a transponder in it, identifying it to the radar. So, you know, a jet flying in the sky without a transponder should be something that stands out to the radar operator. Okay. We got no ping from the FDR black boxes at this point, indicating either no crash or a safe landing somewhere, or that it did crash in a very remote and deep part of the ocean. But the evidence doesn't really point to that, as you know, at this point it would have been down for 6, 7, 8 days at this point. Yeah, 8 days at this point. It went down on March 8th. And if it hit the ocean, it would have broken apart and there would be debris somewhere. Okay, somebody would have already found a seat cushion or a piece of a wing or something like that floating around in the ocean. The whole thing wouldn't just sink. It would have to shatter when it hit. Okay, this is a 300,000-pound aircraft, by the way. So just so in case you have any doubts that there would be any debris, I mean luggage, you know, something has to, you know, if it hit the ocean, something would be floating around. Now, we now know that the plane was in operational. It was in an operational status for 8 hours, right? 7 of those hours were after it was lost communication with Malaysian air traffic control. So, this plane flew for 8 hours. Or operated for 8 hours without anybody seeing it. Now when I say operated, I mean it could have landed and somebody, you know, when it landed they could have just left it on and it would continue to ping back to the satellites. But that would also mean that the airplane landed safely and was outside, because the satellite's signals will not go through a steel building if you put it in a steel hangar. It just stops. Or, you know, it kept on flying for those 8 hours, okay? So, 8 hours without the transponder on doesn't make it invisible for those 8 hours. And in those 8 hours, you're telling me that not a single radar anywhere in that area picked up an unidentified a bogey or an aircraft flying? I mean, wouldn't they have all been told or know at that point that, hey, we're missing a flight, look for an unidentified ping on your radar? You know? Alright, now they say, oh, you can fly below the radar or outside radar range. Yeah, for 8 hours? That seems a little unlikely to me. Okay? Another fact. No known cell phone communications from the time of the communications blackout. And in 8 hours, nobody on that plane made a phone call or text or whatever. So, possibility that it could have been out of range for those entire 8 hours, but at 580 miles an hour, that's 2,000 miles of outside cell phone range. Now, it's possible, but I'm thinking that's highly unlikely, which of course points to the hijacking. You know, if you hijacked an airplane, what would the first thing you do? It would be just, hey, cough up all the cell phones now, right? So, you know, at this point, one of the very significant pieces of information that we have is that we have no admitted contact from the airplane since the communications blackout. This is a key here. The key is admitted, right? No one's admitting to have actually made contact with this plane. If the plane was hijacked for political reasons or a ransom scenario and landed safely, by now, surely we would have had some communication from the hijackers, but we do not, okay? What are the possible reasons for this? Well, perhaps the hijackers' plans got botched, and for some reason they bailed on the whole plan, scuttling the plane and the hostages. Now that's a very sad scenario, but a possible one, right? You know, hey, we were going to steal this plane, we were going to fly it into a building, or we were going to take hostages, and for some reason we can't do that, and I'm getting on the boat and walking away from this thing, but first I'm going to blow it up so that, you know, there's no evidence of me on it, right? So that's a sad situation, a sad possibility, but a possibility nonetheless. Okay, so, you know, another possibility. Perhaps the plane did crash in a very remote and deep part of the ocean. Not on land, because if it crashed on land, the flight data recorders and the emergency locator transmitter would have been activated, and satellites would have picked that up already, or somebody would have picked that up already. So this didn't crash on land at all. There's no possible way that happened. Those FDRs and ELTs will actually go off regardless. So if it did crash, the possibility of that happening right at this point is very remote area deep in the ocean. Again, no debris for that, right? I mean, ocean currents go and go and go. Sooner or later, some piece of this plane is going to end up somewhere. Remember, it's 300,000 pounds of material. Okay? Okay. Perhaps the plane was landed, but the reason for the hijack was for the purpose of kidnapping or theft of something on that airplane. In which case, you know, you'd never want this plane to show up. You would basically scuttle the plane, unfortunately, kill the hostages, and take your booty, your ill-gotten gains, and go, right? So if this plane was stolen because somebody on that plane was a key person with a piece of technology or some knowledge of something that somebody wanted really badly, or had information that somebody wanted really badly, well, maybe that's why it was stolen. Perhaps the cargo hold had 20 tons of gold in it, or diamonds or something, and somebody figured that out, and they said, hey, if I steal this plane, I'm set for life. Now, there's some really sick people out there who will do that. They will, you know, who see a lot of money and just go crazy, or are already crazy and are looking for a reason to be even more crazy, okay? So there's a possibility that maybe the plane was stolen to get something that was on the plane, okay? The last and most probable possibility here is a cover-up. The hijackers have contacted the authorities, and that information is being kept secret to negotiate with the criminals. Perhaps they are in a standoff situation where, you know, we got the hostages, we got a bomb, and either you give us what we want, or we blow you up, right? Or we blow the plane up. Okay, well, in that situation, do you want the world's news media descending on the place like a zoo? No. You know, do you want the hostage takers to have access to the media? Well, if you're negotiating with the hostage takers, not having access to the media is a very, very powerful negotiating point. Because, hey, if you got a political reason for this, you know, or if you're trying to say, hey, I'm going to free a bunch of political prisoners in you know, Pakistan or something, you want access to the media, okay? But we don't have any of that, which is Pretty weird, right? If you had a hostage situation. But if you're in a remote location, you want to keep things under wrap if you're the authorities, and you want to keep control of the situation by not letting the media show up, okay? I'm hoping that that's the scenario that's currently playing out. Now that would mean that the hostages are alive, the plane's in one piece, okay? But I think that this is the most significant piece of information pointing to the cover-up. And for whatever reason, maybe they're covering it up because they did something really incompetent at the beginning, or they're, I guess, again, as I said, under a hostage situation, or there's government corruption here. Who knows? But here's the significant piece of information. I'm just a single guy. I live in Texas. I have a laptop connected to the internet. And 6 days ago, I can look at the information and tell you that that plane was hijacked. 6 days ago. Okay? 5 days from that point on, which is a total of 7 days from when the plane went down, the authorities actually admit that the plane has been hijacked. Okay? Well, why are they looking for a crashed plane if the plane's been hijacked? Why wouldn't you be looking for someplace where it landed? Right? Why is it that they're so certain that the plane crashed? There's no debris. There's no evidence that the plane crashed. There's no ELT or flight data recorder emitting any signals. There's no proof of a crash. Yet they continue to look for an airplane and make everybody think that they're still looking for an airplane. Okay? So, it's very dubious on their part to not actually admit to this. I mean, they knew the information that I deduced that the plane was hijacked 2 days before I did. Okay? That would make it a total of 7 days that they knew the plane was hijacked before they admitted to it. Okay? Well, here's the standard protocol. Transponder turned off, communications cut off, airplane heading changed. All at the same time. Those 3 key pieces of information are enough for any person in an air traffic control situation to know the plane has most probably been hijacked, because that's just code for all hijack situations. Every plane in 9/11 had the communications cut off and the transponder turned off at the same time. Plus, at a certain point in their flight pattern, the flight direction or heading and altitude changed unannounced. So, I mean, if that plane had been flying over the United States, it would have been, the fighter jets would have been scrambled, and, failure to communicate with those fighter jets would have produced a unfortunate situation, which would have been the plane would have been shot down. Right? Because, basically at that point you have to assume the plane has been hijacked. Now, Malaysian authorities didn't do that. They didn't scramble anybody to go after it. Again, as I said, turning the transponder off does not make the plane radar invisible. They still had radar contact with this plane for several hours after they knew it was missing, or after they knew it was hijacked. Okay, I have to assume they knew it was hijacked, right? So, you have to ask yourself, if they're suppressing this information, they suppress it for 7 days, what other information are they suppressing? Right? Can you really trust these people at this point? I mean, like I said, I'm a lone guy in Texas. I figured this out 2 days after it happened. Okay? Pretty weird. All right, so there's my analysis of the current scenario. Thank you for watching. I want everybody to pray for the families of these hostages, and I'm going to assume they're hostages at this point, because that's the best case scenario. So I'm going to say pray for the hostages, the passengers and crew of the MH370. Pray for their families, and pray that everybody is in good health and okay on the ground somewhere. Thanks for watching.